Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about the tragic downfall of the Vikings, a civilization that used to be considered top 5 on Arabia and is now considered average or maybe even below average depending on who you speak to. Now the reason this is the case is because Vikings went through a few nerfs back to back, some direct and some indirect, and they only got a small buff in return. Not only that though, but there were some other civilizations that came in that were just simply stronger than the Vikings, and I'm going to be talking about all that in this video. Now Vikings used to be a civilization I recommended to a lot of beginners because they were simple, easy to play, and they get you good results. However, nowadays it's a civilization I tell you guys to avoid. I mean, just in general, the Vikings have always been a strong early to mid game civ that kind of peaks off at around early imp and starts to fall off a little bit later because their late game tech tree isn't great and they're a little bit abusable when heavy siege comes on the field or some strong compositions. And so Vikings were really that civilization that likes to end the game a lot more quickly, or a lot quicker than some of the other civilizations. Alright, to start things off, let's take a look at what Vikings were good at, or maybe still are good at. Well, they used to have a great economy and still have that. Free wheelbarrow, free handcart, that's kind of like the best bonus that the civilization has, and we still kept that, so that's great. Civilizations can be really strong early. You get from feudal to castle at a solid time, usually faster than your opponents, and then you have solid timings to abuse with your fast crossbow or fast arbalest. And fast imp with Vikings, staying on 1TC and just getting the arbalest upgrade was a really popular strategy. However, it's not as possible or not as easy to do these days, and I'll go into why soon. And then they also had a decent transition into like ending the game. Once you do get the arbalest after the fast imp, you can easily transition into like pikemen, champions, or berserker just to complement the arbalest, and you also had the option to go into like onagers or trebs or even siege ram just to end the game on the spot or as quick as possible. You know, these things sound great, and a lot of these things the Vikings still have, but what did they lose? Well, let's take a look at it. So the first big nerf that the Vikings received was a direct nerf, and it was the loss of thumb ring. Now when this happened, I actually thought it might have been a small buff, and I'll tell you why. When they lost thumb ring, they also gained a small buff to their berserkers, and I thought that can go a long way. Basically, the berserker became stronger in Castle Age, you got like a couple extra attack, and the elite upgrade was made cheaper. So berserkers got a pretty significant buff. However, the civilization did lose thumb ring, and it turned out to be a lot worse than I thought. At first, like I said, I thought it was a trade-off. I was like, okay, you know, we don't have the strongest arbalest, but we'll still go arbalest, and then we'll just switch into berserker, and all is good. We're still a good civ. However, it wasn't really like that. Thumb ring is a huge upgrade for the Vikings because it gives you a really strong army in Imperial Age. Without thumb ring, your arbalests are a lot weaker, especially at doing like DPS from the back. So even like the arbalest berserker comp is a lot weaker right now and a lot less effective. And then also in Castle Age, you have like zero threat to put pressure on your opponent now. All you can do is field some crossbow without thumb ring, and that's not really any danger. So your opponent, you know, when going up against the Vikings, doesn't really have to worry about much. You know, back in the day, 30 Expo with thumb ring coming at you, that's pretty scary. 30 Expo without thumb ring is a lot more manageable now, and it's not like thumb ring was always picked up, but just having it there and having it as a threat made your opponent respect the Vikings a little bit more in Castle Age. It also made it so when you get fast imp, you can't really afford a berserker transition, but you can afford thumb ring. Now you go fast imp, you still can't afford the berserker transition even though they made it cheaper, but now you don't have thumb ring. So the fast imp just isn't really there anymore. You don't have that fast imp arbalest super dangerous timing window to win the game. Now you go fast imp, you got your ball of arbalest, and your opponent can just win with knights, and it's really hard to have that threat that you had before, and that just alone was a massive nerf to the Vikings. However, their bad luck didn't stop there. Arbalest and Expo on the next patch received another nerf, and remember, Arbalest and Expo is pretty much what Vikings are. That's all they have on land map. It's either that or infantry. Their cavalry is very, very weak. So yeah, going back to the nerf, we have Arbalest and Expo upgrades being made more expensive. Both upgrades, by the way, so this not only hurt their Castle Age because the Expo upgrade is more expensive, it also severely hurt their fast imp because now the Arbalest being a couple hundred resources more expensive, it's just really hard to get to that if you're on low economy going for fast imp. So with the loss of thumb ring and the arbalest being made more expensive, the fast imp threat is almost completely gone from the Vikings. So now you can't really go fast imp. You're forced to play like a balanced Castle Age with like some Expo, some boom, and then play it like that. But then the problem is you don't have thumb ring, so even like your mid-late Castle Age is very weak. And you might be thinking, well, why not just play towards the strength, play towards berserkers? They got buffed. And you're not wrong, like berserkers are a good unit. It's just hard to like make berserkers work in the early game. Infantry in general isn't an early game unit, it's more of a late game unit because you can only play infantry when you're able to like spam them. Because if you just make like 10 infantry, your opponent can easily kite against that and just micro them down. They'll do like literally nothing. But if you have like 30-40 berserkers all upgraded full armor, okay, you can send them in, you can raid, you can kill TCs, you can kill buildings, and then it becomes pretty good. Your opponent can't kite and micro down 40 berserkers easily, especially when the next wave is coming. So berserkers ogres are more of a like a late game thing, and so in Castle Age we still don't really have a good option besides crossbow, and crossbow is extremely weak for the Vikings at the moment. Alright, and if these new things weren't enough, there's a third thing that happened for the Vikings, or not for the Vikings, around the Vikings, that heavily affected the civilization as well, and that is the introduction of other civilizations that are simply way more overpowered than the Vikings ever were. This is the problem I have with nerfing classic civilizations. They seem strong, yes, they were dominant for a long time, but when you nerf them and then you introduce something that's even more powerful, then the classic civilization just has nothing to do anymore. Like, now it's just completely out the window. I'll give you a few examples of civilizations that are just better than the Vikings, even when the Vikings have thumb ring. For example, Burgundians. You just have a much better economy even than Vikings, which is crazy to say, but having the cheap eco upgrades, although Burgundians are getting nerfed now, when they were introduced, having the 50% cheaper eco upgrades just meant that you turbo the same speed as Vikings, and then you just have much better units. And then on top of that, you have the Flemish Revolution, so Burgundians are just literally better than Vikings in every way. You got civs like Gurjars, you got civs like Hindustani, you got civs like Poles that came in and are just way better than the Vikings. It's not even close. And so Vikings going from a top 5 to then getting nerfed and being average to then introducing 5 or so civilizations that are just better than Vikings, like way better, and in some cases even counted the Vikings. Now we're pushing Vikings down by even 5 more slots. And it's just crazy how this all happened within the span of like 3-4 months. It's quite a shame because this civilization was a fun civ to play on Arabia, not because the units were fun, but just because it's fun to hit that timing, have that good economy, put that pressure, aim for the fast imp. There's a couple of things you can do with it that made it a dangerous civilization. And while I agree it was worthy of a nerf at the time, I think we should have had a little bit more foresight with the new civs coming and just keep it at a strong power level instead of taking away thumb ring and then introducing the broken civilization. However, listen, it's not the end of the world. We can always revert the change, give them back thumb ring, or just give them something else in general that can make the civ a little bit more appealing. But if you're a Viking player, let me know your thoughts in the comments about what happened with your games. Did you notice that they became weaker? Did you have bad experiences with them after the nerfs? Did you have to stop playing them altogether? Do let me know in the comments. Me personally, I stopped picking them in tournaments. I don't like playing them anymore, and it's a civilization I generally avoid just because I think it's really easy to play against at the high level. So that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Let me know if you enjoy this kind of content talking about civilizations. I really enjoy it myself, and it kind of gives current updates on the civilizations. So if you guys are new, want to pick something up, and you see a video like this, maybe stay away from the Vikings for now. You're not gonna have the most amount of success with it. But yeah, it's gonna be it for me. Take care. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.